here we are in New York to meet with designer Steven Burks in Chinatown. So recently you got the award from the Hewitt National Design Museum.
Yeah.
You got the award. Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
How does it feel to get honored with that?
I mean, the Hewitt National Design Award is the highest honor our nation gives to design. So it's very inspiring, and for me to win it as opposed to some of the big manufacturers and design consultancies is also really impressive. I mean, I think that it means that not just our country, but really the public at large is beginning to recognize the importance of this kind of work, this kind of workshop-based practice. To be able to say, hey, there's Steven, and he's weaving chairs and baskets in different places, and that work is valuable, to all of us. I think that means a lot to me.
So tell me a little bit about the background. How did you get into design in the first place?
I guess I always knew I wanted to make things. I've always been fascinated by objects in space. In a sense, more interested in the scale of the hand, the scale of the body, the person in the interior rather than the building at large. So I made my way to design through architecture. I mean, I'm really interested in how people use things. They kind of the space between the object and the activity, I used to say. And today the studio is focused primarily on really the intersection between the hand and industry. So the studio is called Burks Man Made, and our focus is what we call cultural design. So we're trying to kind of push toward a constant immersive development process where we move away from a studio-based practice and more to a kind of workshop-based practice, which is really connected to kind of my way of working, going in the field, developing the product with the artisans, going into the factory, developing the product with the makers. So yeah, I think as designers, if we get closer to the act of making, we really have more opportunity for innovation.
Maybe it is so that design changes our behavior rather than other things.
Sure.
What's your take on that?
I mean, I think it's important that as designers we don't disconnect design from the rest of culture. The art world, architecture, photography, fashion, all of these things are design, and all of these things play a role in how we as people perceive our environment. But what I'm most interested in is how we can really kind of continue to develop the culture of making from these kind of original techniques, which are more artisan-based, into more technical and kind of industrial, technological advances. So really where, craft traditions meet high technology, I think, is the future of design.
You work a lot in different countries.
Sure.
with different crafts, as you say, and different techniques. What are you seeking for when you go to all these places?
I guess I'm just looking for new ways to make things, and this is where my inspiration comes from. I have to say that some point along the way in my career, we made our first handmade object, and it happened to be the Missoni patchwork vases, and those things really, it was like a light bulb went off. All of a sudden, we could make something by hand in the studio and get kind of international recognition for it.
If you look ahead, then you've been working pretty much in different countries like that. So what is your next step now then?
Well, what we're trying to do to kind of evolve the Man-Made project is this cultural design strategy, let's say, where we're partnering with brands that value what we can bring to the table, which is we're intending to do a lot more than just supply a drawing. And so through this immersive development process, we get to know more about what the brand makes and how they make it, and hopefully find some room to kind of develop a new point of view and really create products that have the capacity for a cultural shift, to move things in a totally new direction. I think that the more we can communicate how things are made, and we can invite people in through, very obvious techniques, then in one way or another, we can kind of pique their interest in design and kind of continue to build a bridge from hand traditions into the future.
And how do you then see your role as a designer in this? What's your sort of mission in this?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a kind of stylist. I think today's designer, which I hope to be, is more interested in being a kind of collaborator, a conduit through which ideas flow. You know, we're not looking for clients, we're looking for partners, and we're very much interested in being involved at every step along the way in the design process. And so even beyond that, you know, we're even talking to some of our partners about ways to tell the story of the product once it's existing in real life. And I think that design consciousness is reaching that level today.
So it's not so much about designing pieces anymore. It's
Right.
more designing the way we live, or designing the way we want to live.
I mean, I would like to think that we're part of designing a process, and that process of an object, right, has to keep in mind not just the production, not just the distribution, the business side, but then also the life within the consumer's lifestyle. So.
Yeah. So then, actually, the designer is becoming more and more important as a person. Designers, they actually shape the way people are living.
I mean, that speaks more to the designer's ego, and I think that the more 20th century perspective of the designer, I think in reality, we really just need to find our position within a larger framework, within a larger discussion about design, to have a dialogue with the partners or the manufacturers that we're working with, and also a dialogue with the consumer.
As the designer and the design companies are taking more and more control over their own lives, so to speak, that
Sure.
they are designing, they are producing, they are selling, and they are distributing. So suddenly a design company owns the whole chain, so to speak.
Sure.
Is that something that you see that you want to do in the future?
I mean, it was never my ambition to kind of own the whole chain, although to be part of the whole chain, to participate and to be able to kind of take part in the process along the way is much more interesting to me. So I think we as designers have to understand how to be most effective in the process along the way, and sometimes that means owning the whole chain, as you described, but other times that means plugging in where we need to and developing the product and stepping away. I think in general, companies like Apple and these big electronics brands have to find a way into people's soul. And I think, of course, we need these things because the interfaces and the apps, etc. And I think all of that is changing the way we live and work. But on the other hand, there seems to be something missing for me, which takes the product deeper.
So if you were to give a young person that wants to become a designer an advice, what would that be?
I think that it's really important that you find your own voice, but I think really more importantly is knowing history, because I think you know, we have to understand where we're coming from to understand where we're going.